The morning sun was soft and golden when Myra walked along the sandy shore with her little son, Ravi. The waves came and went in a gentle rhythm, leaving shells scattered on the wet sand. Myra loved the beach at this hour, when the world was still quiet and calm. It was her way of giving Ravi a small escape from their busy and often tiring life. She carried a basket with simple food sandwiches, fruit, and a bottle of water. Ravi, holding his small toy car in one hand, ran ahead with the energy only children have. His laughter filled the air as he left tiny footprints behind him. Not too far, Ravi. Myra called out, smiling. Ravi turned, grinned, and ran back toward her. Mama, the sea is so big. Do you think it has secrets? Myra laughed softly. Maybe it does. But today we are just here to enjoy it, not find its secrets. They spread out a small blanket on the sand. Myra watched her son play near the water's edge. She felt both joy and a quiet worry inside her heart. Life as a single mother was not easy. She worked long hours at the bookstore, saving every coin she could for Ravi's schooling. But in this moment, with the sun rising higher and the waves dancing, her heart felt lighter. Just then, Myra noticed something strange. Far out in the water, a figure moved awkwardly, struggling against the waves. At first, she thought it was someone swimming with difficulty. But then the figure's arms splashed wildly, almost calling for help. Her heart skipped. Oh no, someone is drowning. Without another thought, Myra jumped to her feet. Ravi, stay here. Don't move from this spot, she shouted firmly. Ravi, sensing the seriousness in her voice, nodded quickly and held his toy car tightly. Myra ran toward the water, her feet sinking into the wet sand. She had learned to swim in her childhood, though she had never imagined she would need that skill in such a moment. The waves pushed against her legs, but she forced herself forward, swimming strong and steady. The man's head dipped under the surface, then appeared again. He was tall, but his strength seemed gone, as if the sea was pulling him down. Myra reached him just in time, grabbing his arm. Hold on, she shouted, though she wasn't sure he could hear. His eyes were half closed, his breathing rough. Myra pulled with all her strength, kicking her legs hard. The weight of his body slowed her, but she refused to give up. She thought of Ravi waiting on the shore. She thought of how no one should lose their life this way. The waves fought her, but at last her feet touched the sandy bottom. She dragged the man closer, step by step, until they collapsed on the shore. Myra bent over him, breathing heavily. The man's face was pale, his chest barely rising. Myra pressed gently, helping him clear the water from his lungs. Slowly, he coughed, his body shivering. His eyes opened just a little, and for a brief moment, they met hers. There was something unusual in those eyes. Not just fear, but also surprise, as if he had never expected kindness from a stranger. His lips trembled, and in a weak voice he whispered, "Thank you." Then, before she could say anything, his eyes closed again. By then, other people on the beach noticed the scene and came running. Someone shouted, "Call an ambulance." Another person rushed to check his pulse. Myra stepped back, her heart still racing. She knew she should stay, but something inside her told her to leave. If people asked questions, if reporters came later, her quiet life would be disturbed. She could not afford attention or curiosity from strangers, not when she had a little boy to protect. Mama. Ravi ran up to her, eyes wide with worry. Are you okay? Myra hugged him tightly, brushing the wet hair from her face. I'm fine, Ravi. Let's go. But the man, he will be taken care of, Myra whispered softly. She looked one last time at the man lying on the sand, surrounded by people trying to help. Something about him felt important, though she did not know why. Holding Ravi's hand, she quietly walked away. She picked up their basket and blanket quickly, blending into the small crowd leaving the beach. By the time the paramedics arrived, Myra and Ravi were already gone. Later, when the man was carried into the ambulance, he woke again. His vision was blurred, but he searched the crowd with desperate eyes. Where is she?" he whispered hoarsely. No one knew who he meant. To them, he was just a man who nearly drowned a man they now realized was Arjun, the famous billionaire who owned companies across the country. The news would spread fast, but the mysterious woman who saved him had already vanished without a word. As the ambulance doors closed, Arjun closed his eyes again, but her face stayed in his memory. He had no name, no clue, only the image of a woman with kind, determined eyes pulling him back from the edge of death. And deep inside, he knew he could not rest until he found her. Arjun lay in his hospital bed, staring at the ceiling. The sound of machines and soft beeps surrounded him, but his mind was somewhere else. Again and again, he saw her face, the woman who had pulled him from the waves. Her eyes had been filled with courage, her hands strong, and her voice steady as she told him to hold on. But then she was gone. The doctors called it a miracle that someone had saved him in time. Without her, he might not have survived. Yet no one knew who she was. No name. No address. Nothing. Arjun closed his eyes. All his life, he had lived surrounded by people, but none of them cared for him without reason. Friends, business partners, even distant relatives, all of them saw his money before they saw him. But this woman? She had risked herself, saved his life, and then disappeared without asking for anything. For the first time in years, Arjun felt something stir in his heart. A longing not for success, not for wealth, but for connection. He needed to find her. A week later, Arjun returned home. His mansion was large, with tall glass windows and marble floors, but it felt strangely empty. His assistant, Ramesh, handed him papers to sign. "Sir, the press is still asking about the accident," Ramesh said carefully. "Do you want to release a statement?" Arjun shook his head. "No. Not until I know who saved me." Ramesh frowned. "But sir," the woman left without a word. "No one saw her clearly. It will be impossible to find her." Arjun's voice was firm. "Nothing is impossible. Hire investigators. Ask around the beach. Someone must know something." Ramesh sighed but nodded. He knew when Arjun set his mind on something, he never gave up. Meanwhile, Myra continued her life quietly. She never told anyone what she had done, not even the people at her workplace. At the bookstore, she arranged shelves, greeted customers, and read stories to Ravi at night. But deep inside, she felt unsettled. She knew the man she had saved was no ordinary person. She had seen the whispers on the beach when people recognized him. The name Arjun had been spoken with surprise and shock. Myra had heard it, but she tried to push it away. She did not want fame. She did not want her life to change. All she wanted was to protect her son and give him a simple, safe life. One evening, as she tucked Ravi into bed, he looked up at her with curious eyes. "Mama, the man you saved, do you think he's okay now?" Myra stroked his hair gently. "Yes, Ravi. I believe he is fine. He has people to care for him." Ravi smiled sleepily. "I hope he remembers you. You were like a hero, Mama." Myra's heart tightened. She kissed his forehead and whispered, "Good night, my little one." Days passed, and Arjun's search grew restless. The investigators brought him blurry pictures, false leads, and dead ends. Some claimed to have seen a woman leaving the beach, but no one knew her name. One night, Arjun sat alone in his study. The rain tapped against the windows as he looked at the empty fireplace. He felt frustrated. All his wealth, all his power, yet he could not find one ordinary woman. He whispered to himself, why did she save me and leave? Who is she? He began going to the same beach every morning, walking along the shore, watching the waves. He hoped that maybe, by some miracle, she would appear again. On one of those mornings, he noticed a group of children playing. Their laughter reminded him of her son, the little boy who had run to her side that day. Arjun remembered the child's wide eyes and worried voice calling, Mama. That detail became his new clue. She was not alone. She had a child. Find the schools near this area, Arjun told Ramesh later. Look for any child whose mother might fit her description. Ramesh nodded, though he looked doubtful. Sir, this could take months. I don't care if it takes years, Arjun replied. She saved my life. I must find her. While Arjun searched, Myra tried to stay unnoticed. But children often speak freely, and one small thing soon changed everything. At school, Ravi's teacher asked the class to write a short essay about a hero. Ravi, with innocent pride, wrote about his mother. My hero is my mama. She saved a man from drowning at the beach. She is very brave. She says heroes don't need their names written in newspapers. They just do the right thing. The teacher, touched by the essay, shared it in the small community newsletter. It was printed with the simple title, A Local Child Writes About His Brave Mother. The newsletter spread quietly through the town. It was meant as a sweet story, nothing more. But one copy found its way into Arjun's hands. That night, he sat at his desk, reading the words carefully. His hands trembled slightly as he realized the truth. She has a son, and she didn't want her name in the newspapers, he murmured. For the first time in weeks, a spark of hope lit his heart. This essay was not a full answer, but it was a sign. She is here, close by, Arjun whispered. And I will find her. He leaned back in his chair, closing his eyes. The waves of that day echoed in his memory, but now he felt one step closer to the woman who had changed his life. The morning sun poured softly through the tall windows of Arjun's study as he read the small newsletter again. The words of the child's essay touched something deep inside him. It was not written with fancy sentences, but it carried honesty that he had rarely seen in his life. My hero is my mama. She saved a man from drowning at the beach, Arjun whispered the words again, his voice almost trembling. It has to be her. For weeks, he had been chasing shadows. Now, for the first time, he had a real sign. She had a son. A boy who admired his mother so deeply that he called her his hero. Arjun leaned back in his chair, staring at the ceiling. All his life he had lived in a world where people admired him for money, not for courage. And here was a woman who had risked her life without asking for anything, and a boy who believed kindness was greater than fame. He folded the paper carefully and kept it in his desk drawer as if it was a treasure. Then he called Ramesh. Find out where this newsletter came from, Arjun said firmly. Yes, sir, Ramesh replied, though he looked unsure. But it might not be easy. The essay doesn't even mention her name. Arjun gave him a steady look. Start with the schools near the beach. The boy must study in one of them. We will find her. Meanwhile, Myra had no idea her son's innocent essay had drawn attention. She walked to the bookstore that morning with Ravi holding her hand. He skipped beside her, humming a little tune. Mama, he said cheerfully, teacher liked my essay so much she showed it to other teachers. Myra smiled softly, though her heart tightened a little. That's nice, Ravi. But remember, sometimes it's better not to talk too much about certain things. Ravi tilted his head. Why? I'm proud of you. Her eyes softened. She stopped, knelt, and touched his cheek. I know, my love. But sometimes being quiet keeps our life peaceful. That's all. Ravi nodded slowly, not fully understanding, but he trusted her. At the bookstore, Myra went about her usual task, stacking books, greeting customers, and smiling at familiar faces. She liked the calmness of this place. The smell of paper, the quiet rustle of pages, and the little bell on the door gave her a sense of comfort. It was a small world, but it was safe. On the other side of the city, Arjun sat in his car outside a local school. He watched children pouring out of the gate, laughing and talking. His eyes searched every face, hoping to find the boy from the essay. But of course, he had no picture, no name, no clue. Ramesh sat beside him, shaking his head. "Sir, this could take months. There are many schools here." Arjun didn't answer. His gaze remained fixed on the children. He remembered the boy's voice calling Mama on the beach. That memory was sharper than any photograph. Suddenly, he saw a little boy running to his mother. The woman held his hand, smiling gently as they walked away. Arjun's heart raced. From the distance, her face seemed familiar. Could it be her? He quickly stepped out of the car, but by the time he crossed the street, the crowd had swallowed them. He stood still, watching helplessly as they disappeared into the busy road. He whispered under his breath, "I was so close." Days turned into weeks. Arjun attended community events near the beach, hoping she might appear. He donated to schools and libraries, searching for a connection. Every time he saw a mother with her child, his heart would leap, only to fall again when it wasn't her. At night, he often stood at his balcony, staring at the city lights. "Why do I feel this way?" he asked himself. "Why does she matter so much?" He didn't have the answer. All he knew was that the moment in the water had changed him. She had given him life, but more than that, she had given him a reason to look beyond wealth and loneliness. Back in her small home, Myra sat by the window after putting Ravi to sleep. She thought about that day at the beach. Sometimes she wondered if the man even remembered her. Other times she feared what would happen if he found her. She whispered to herself, "Our lives are too different. He belongs to a world of riches. I belong here." And yet, deep inside, there was a quiet ache she could not name. One afternoon, at Ravi's school, the teacher announced something. "Children, the local newsletter has printed Ravi's essay." Everyone loved it. The children clapped, and Ravi beamed with pride. Myra, who had come to pick him up, froze in shock. "What did you say?" she asked quietly. The teacher smiled warmly. "Yes, his essay was published. Isn't it wonderful? Everyone should know how brave you are." Myra's heart sank. She forced a smile, thanked the teacher, and quickly led Ravi home. That evening, as she prepared dinner, her hands shook. She looked at Ravi, who was happily drawing at the table. "If someone important reads that essay," she whispered to herself, "they might find us." That night, her fear was already becoming true. In his study, Arjun placed the newsletter on his desk once more. His eyes burned with determination. "She is close," he said firmly. "Closer than ever." And though he didn't know her name yet, he promised himself that no matter how long it took, he would bring their worlds together again. The morning breeze carried the chatter of children as they ran through the schoolyard. Arjun stood quietly near the gate, his dark glasses hiding the intensity in his eyes. He had been waiting here for days, trying to find the boy from the essay. Each morning, his car would park a short distance away, and he would watch carefully, hoping to see the woman whose memory never left his mind. That day, the school bell rang, and children poured out through the gate. Some ran into their parents' arms, others walked together with friends. Then, among them, Arjun saw a boy holding a small lunch box, walking beside a woman. His heart skipped. From afar, her figure seemed familiar. She moved with a gentle grace, her hand resting protectively on the boy's shoulder. Something deep inside Arjun told him it was her. He stepped forward, his heartbeat quickening. But the road was busy, and a passing vehicle blocked his view for a moment. By the time he crossed the street, the woman and child were gone, lost among the crowd. Arjun stood still, his chest heavy. So close, he whispered to himself. Ramesh, who had followed him, said softly, "Sir, perhaps she doesn't want to be found." Arjun shook his head. "No. She saved me. I must thank her. This is not about wealth or fame. It's about gratitude, and something more." Meanwhile, Myra guided Ravi carefully through the busy streets. She felt uneasy, as if unseen eyes followed her. She told herself it was just her imagination. But deep inside, she knew the essay had already gone further than she wanted. At home, Ravi chattered happily about his school day, but Myra's thoughts wandered. She sat by the window, staring at the quiet lane outside. The memory of that day at the beach returned again, the stranger's pale face, his whispered thank you, and the crowd that had rushed in afterward. She wondered if he ever thought about her. No, she told herself firmly. That world is not ours. She had built her life carefully, step by step, with no place for sudden storms. Yet, she could not deny that part of her heart still held that memory close. The next morning, Arjun returned to the beach. He walked along the shore where the waves lapped gently against the sand. The sea looked calm, but he remembered the struggle of that day, how close he had been to losing everything. He closed his eyes and heard again the voice that had cut through the water, "Hold on." It was strange. He didn't even know her name, yet that voice was the most precious sound in his memory. He sat on the sand for a long while, watching families around him. Children built sandcastles, parents laughed together, and life moved on. But for him, time felt paused, waiting for her. At the bookstore, Myra arranged a new set of children's books on the shelf. She loved the quiet rhythm of her work, the smell of fresh pages, the way children's faces lit up when they found a story they liked. Her manager smiled at her. "Myra, you have a gift. Customers say you make them feel welcome." She returned the smile politely. "Books bring peace. That's all I try to share." Just then, the little bell on the door rang, and a tall man entered. He wore a simple shirt, not the suit people usually expected from someone important. Myra didn't pay much attention at first, but something about his presence made her glance again. "Arjun." Her heart froze. She recognized him instantly, the man from the beach, the one she had pulled from the water. She turned quickly, hiding her face behind the books she carried. Arjun moved slowly through the aisles, his eyes scanning the shop. He was not looking for a book. He was searching for her. Myra's hands trembled. She wanted to run, but Ravi's voice echoed in her memory, "Mama, you were like a hero." No, she could not run in fear. She had to stay calm. She placed the books on the shelf and walked to the counter, her face carefully composed. Arjun stopped near the children's section, his gaze falling on a familiar toy display. He remembered the boy at the beach holding something small in his hand. A toy car. His heart quickened. He turned toward the counter, and for the briefest moment, their eyes met. Myra quickly looked away, pretending to arrange the register. Arjun froze. Those eyes. He could never forget them. But before he could speak, another customer stepped in, asking for help. Myra used the chance to slip into the back room, her breath unsteady. That night, Myra sat at her small dining table, staring at the lamp's soft glow. Ravi was asleep in the next room, his toy car resting beside him. Her heart beat fast as she remembered the bookstore. He had come so close. He had seen her. She knew it. She whispered to herself, "Why now? Why again?" Her quiet world was trembling. She had worked so hard to keep it safe, to protect Ravi from attention. And yet, Fate seemed to keep pulling her back toward the man she had saved. Arjun, meanwhile, sat in his car outside the bookstore, his thoughts racing. He was certain now. The woman inside was the one he had been searching for. He leaned back, closing his eyes. "I found you," he whispered. But he also knew she was hiding. She had turned away, avoided him, slipped into the shadows. He promised himself he would not push her too hard. He would wait, visit again, and show her that he meant no harm. For now, he had only one thought in his heart: she saved my life. Now I will spend mine proving I am worthy of her trust. The little bookstore became quieter as the days of summer rolled by. Myra worked with her usual calm, arranging shelves, greeting customers, and making sure Ravi stayed close after school. But ever since that day when she had seen him, the man from the sea, her heart had been restless. She told herself she had imagined it, that he wouldn't really search for her. Yet deep inside, she knew it was true. Arjun had found her. The first time he returned to the shop after their brief encounter, Myra tried to stay in the back room. She listened as the little bell above the door rang and his footsteps echoed softly against the wooden floor. Her manager greeted him politely. "Looking for something special, sir?" "Yes," Arjun replied smoothly, though his eyes were not on the books. "Children's stories. Something light." Myra's breath caught. She knew he wasn't there for books. He was there for her. But she stayed hidden that day, letting her manager help him. Only when he left did she step out, her hands trembling as she straightened the display. Arjun, however, was patient. He began visiting the store often. Sometimes he bought a novel, sometimes a children's book. He spoke politely with the staff, always calm, never demanding. Slowly, Myra realized he was not rushing. He wasn't forcing his way into her life. He was simply present like a quiet shadow, waiting for her to look his way. One afternoon, Ravi was at the shop, sitting on a stool with his toy car in hand. Arjun walked in and noticed him. His heart softened instantly. The boy reminded him of his own childhood, before life had grown so complicated. "Do you like cars?" Arjun asked gently, crouching a little so his eyes met Ravi's. Ravi nodded shyly. "Yes. This is my favorite one." He held up the small, red car. Arjun smiled. "It's a fine choice. When I was your age, I had one almost the same." Myra, standing nearby, froze. Her instinct told her to step in, but Ravi was smiling in a way she hadn't seen in a long time, open and carefree. She couldn't bring herself to stop the moment. Over the next weeks, Arjun's visits grew warmer. He never revealed who he was, though some customers whispered, recognizing him as the billionaire. In the shop, however, he behaved simply, as if he was just another man who loved books. Myra watched from a distance, her feelings mixed. She remembered the cold water that day, the weight of his body in her arms, and the faint whisper of thanks before he fainted. She had expected never to see him again. Yet here he was, slowly weaving himself into her quiet world. One evening, after closing, her manager said with a smile, "That gentleman seems to like our store very much. Do you know him?" Myra shook her head quickly. "No. He's just a customer." But when she walked home with Ravi, her heart whispered a different answer. Arjun, too, felt the change. Each time he left the bookstore, he carried not only a book but also the image of Myra's face. She rarely spoke to him, but her eyes told him more than words. He could see the walls she had built around herself, the quiet caution in her every movement. She is protecting herself, he thought. And her son. It made him respect her even more. Unlike others in his life, she didn't rush toward him. She tried to stay away. That made him want to prove his sincerity. One Sunday, he saw Myra and Ravi at the park. They were sitting under a tree, sharing sandwiches and laughing as Ravi told a story from school. Arjun stayed at a distance, not wanting to disturb them, but the sight filled him with warmth. Later, when Myra noticed him sitting quietly on a nearby bench with a book in his hand, her heart skipped. For a moment, their eyes met, and this time she didn't look away immediately. There was something calm in the way he sat, as if he wasn't chasing her but simply choosing to be near. Ravi tugged at her sleeve. "Mama, it's the man from the bookstore." Myra smiled faintly. "Yes. Maybe he likes this park too." That night, Myra sat at her desk, watching Ravi sleep. Her thoughts were tangled. She had worked so hard to keep her life simple, far from attention. But Arjun had walked into it gently, not with noise, not with demands, but with quiet persistence. She whispered to herself, "Why is he doing this? He belongs to another world. He doesn't need us." But another part of her heart answered softly, "Maybe he does." Arjun, in his own home, placed the book he had bought on the table. He didn't even open it. His thoughts were only of her. He knew she was still afraid, still hiding. But he was not discouraged. He told himself, "I will not rush her. She saved my life, but now it is my turn. I will show her she can trust me. No matter how long it takes." And with that quiet promise, two very different worlds continued to draw closer, one patient step at a time. The bookstore was quiet that evening. The last customers had already left, and Myra was putting away a stack of returned books. Ravi sat near the counter, drawing shapes on a piece of paper with his crayons. The golden light from the setting sun streamed in through the glass door, casting a warm glow across the wooden floor. The little bell above the door rang, and Myra looked up. Her heart tightened. Arjun had come again. He stepped inside, calm as always, holding no book this time. His eyes searched for her, and when they met hers, he paused. For a long moment, silence filled the small shop. Myra turned away quickly, focusing on the books in her hands. But Arjun slowly walked closer. "Good evening," he said softly. Myra gave a polite nod. "Good evening. Looking for another book?" Arjun shook his head gently. "Not today." Her hands froze on the shelf. She didn't turn, but she knew. This was not an ordinary visit. Something was different in his voice, steadier, deeper, as if he had carried words in his heart for too long and was finally ready to let them out. "Myra," he said quietly. She turned sharply, her eyes widening. You know my name." "Yes," he admitted, his gaze steady. "I know it now. And I know more than that. I know you are the woman who saved me at the beach." The room fell still. Even Ravi looked up from his drawing, sensing the weight of the moment. Myra's hands trembled. She tried to speak, but her throat felt dry. "You're mistaken," she whispered, though her eyes gave away the truth. "No," Arjun said firmly, but not unkindly. "I could never mistake those eyes. I saw them when I was drowning. I heard your voice. You pulled me back when I had no strength left." Myra lowered her gaze. "I didn't want to be found." Arjun took a small step closer, careful not to frighten her. His voice softened. "Why? You saved my life. Why hide from me?" She lifted her chin, her eyes clouded with unspoken fears. "Because people would never let us live in peace. You are from a world of power, money, and attention. I have nothing. I don't want my son's life to change. I don't want reporters at our door or strangers whispering about us. I want to protect him." Her words trembled, but they carried the strength of a mother's heart. Arjun listened quietly, his chest heavy with respect. When she finished, he said slowly, "I understand. And I promise you, I am not here to take away your peace. I am here because I cannot forget you. Myra, all my life I have been surrounded by people who wanted something from me. But you gave me life and asked for nothing. Do you know what that means to me? Myra looked at him, her heart conflicted. She wanted to believe him, but fear wrapped tightly around her. You don't understand my life, she whispered. I work every day just to provide for Ravi. I am not someone who belongs in your world. Arjun's eyes softened. Then let me come into yours. Her breath caught. She stared at him, unsure if she had heard him right. I don't want to change who you are, he continued. I don't want to take you or Ravi away from the life you have built. I only want the chance to stand beside you. To prove that I am not just a man of wealth, but someone who knows what gratitude and care mean. Myra's heart raced. She wanted to run, yet a part of her longed to trust him. She looked at Ravi, who was quietly listening now, his curious eyes moving between them. Is he the man you saved, Mama? Ravi asked softly. Myra froze. She could not answer. Her silence was enough. Ravi turned his wide eyes to Arjun. Then you really are alive because of my mama. Arjun's throat tightened, but he smiled gently at the boy. Yes, Ravi. Because of your brave mother, I am alive today. Ravi's face lit up with innocent pride. I told you, Mama is a hero. Myra's eyes filled with tears. She pressed her lips together, unable to speak. Arjun looked at her with quiet determination. You don't have to answer me now. I will not force you. But I will come, again and again, not to disturb your life but to show you that I am sincere. I want nothing but the chance to prove it. Myra wiped her eyes quickly, her voice low. I don't know if I can trust this, trust you. Arjun bowed his head slightly. Then let me earn it. The bell above the door rang softly as he left, leaving the little bookstore in silence once again. Myra stood still, her hands pressed against the counter, her heart caught between fear and something new, something she hadn't let herself feel in years, hope. Ravi tugged at her sleeve gently. Mama, he seems nice. Maybe he just wants to be our friend. Myra hugged her son tightly, her eyes closing. She didn't answer, but in her heart she knew this was only the beginning. The days passed slowly after Arjun's words in the bookstore. Myra tried to keep herself busy, arranging shelves, reading bedtime stories to Ravi, and managing their small home. But no matter how hard she tried, her heart would not stop replaying his voice, then let me earn it. She wondered if he truly meant it. Men like him, she thought, lived in shining towers and traveled in fast cars. Would he really have time for a small bookstore owner and her little boy? But Arjun came back. Not once. Not twice. Many times. Sometimes he brought a book for Ravi, sometimes a cup of tea for Myra, sometimes just himself with a quiet smile. He never pressed her with questions, never demanded answers. He would sit in a corner of the bookstore, reading, or talk softly with Ravi about drawings and school. His presence became gentle, like sunlight streaming through a window, warm, steady, not too bright to hurt, but bright enough to notice. Myra found herself watching him when he wasn't looking. The way he knelt to hear Ravi's stories, the way his laughter filled the quiet shop, the way he seemed at peace in a simple chair among old books, it surprised her. He was not the man she had imagined. One evening, rain fell heavy outside. The shop was about to close when Arjun entered, carrying an umbrella large enough to cover Ravi and Myra as well. You'll catch a cold walking home, he said simply. Myra hesitated, then allowed him to walk with them. The three of them moved under the umbrella through the wet streets, Ravi holding both their hands. For the first time, Myra felt something she hadn't felt in years, like she wasn't walking alone anymore. Weeks later, Myra's fear still lingered, but it began to soften. She saw how Arjun respected her boundaries. He never asked for more than she could give. He never crossed the line she had drawn. He only stayed near, steady and patient. One quiet Sunday afternoon, Myra and Ravi invited him to share lunch. It wasn't planned, Ravi had insisted. "Mama, can't Uncle Arjun eat with us?" Ravi asked with hopeful eyes. Myra almost said no, but when she saw Arjun's modest smile, she nodded. They sat together at the small wooden table in Myra's kitchen. The meal was simple rice, vegetables, and warm soup. But Arjun ate with genuine joy, as if it were the finest meal he had ever tasted. "Delicious," he said with a smile. Myra shook her head softly. "It's just plain food." "Plain food made with care is better than anything fancy," Arjun replied. Her heart softened at his words. After lunch, Ravi pulled out his crayons and began drawing. He made a picture of the beach, the waves, and 3 small figures holding hands. He proudly showed it to them. "This is us," he said cheerfully. "Mama, me, and Uncle Arjun." Myra's breath caught. She looked at the drawing, then at Arjun. He didn't speak, but his eyes held something deep, something that made her heart tremble. One evening, as the sky glowed with orange light, Myra finally spoke the words she had kept hidden. "Arjun," she said softly, standing by the bookstore shelves. He turned, his face calm, waiting. "I was afraid of you at first," she admitted, her voice trembling. "I thought you would change our lives, take away our peace. But you didn't. You came quietly, gently, and I see now that you are not here to take, but to give." Arjun's chest tightened. He stepped closer, careful as always. "Myra, I would never take from you. I only want to walk beside you. If you let me." She looked into his eyes, searching for even a trace of doubt, but all she saw was truth. For the first time, she let her heart breathe. "Then walk beside us," she whispered. Arjun's eyes glistened. He nodded, unable to speak for a moment. Slowly, he reached out not to take her hand, but to let her choose. And Myra, with a soft, trembling smile, placed her hand in his. At that moment, Ravi ran up, holding another drawing. "Look, Mama. Look, Uncle Arjun. It's a family picture." This time, Myra didn't correct him. She only hugged her son tightly and let the warmth of new beginnings fill her heart. The days that followed felt lighter. Arjun became a steady part of their lives, not in a loud or sudden way, but like a missing piece that finally found its place. Myra learned to smile more. Ravi laughed louder. And Arjun, for the first time in many years, felt at home. He often thought back to the sea, to the moment he had been pulled from the water. He realized now that he hadn't just been saved from drowning. He had been given a new chance at life, a chance to discover what truly mattered. It wasn't the tall buildings, the endless wealth, or the attention of the world. It was this small bookstore. This kind woman. This bright little boy. It was family. And as the sun set one evening, painting the sky with colors of hope, Myra, Ravi, and Arjun walked together through the quiet streets, hand in hand. No words were needed. The silence spoke enough. They were no longer 3 separate lives. They were one journey. A journey that had begun with a rescue by the sea, and led to a love that would last forever.